Welcome to KLINK Africa, your holistic space that intertwines work, lifestyle, beauty, and wellness. We are your hosts, Karabo Tailani Nondumo. I am Siabi Mafoyane, and today we are joined by a very special guest, Ms. Tuto Masasa.
Yay!
Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about societal expectations. So make sure that you listen all the way through. So Tuto, please say hello to Africa.
Well,
Tell everybody
hi.
who you are.
Hello, Africa. My name is Tuto Masasa, and absolutely excited to be here today. It's Women's Month.
Yes.
So, happy Women's Month.
Women's
to you
Year,
ladies.
Women's every
Year.
day.
Women's century.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely honored to be here. I'm a proud African child,
Yes.
having gone around, I guess, mostly in the southern country, but
Yes.
also East Africa, West Africa,
Yes.
exploring and trying to see how we basically move economies for this continent of ours.
Fantastic. I
Awesome.
love it. And today, guys, we're digging into, our conversations are never for the faint-hearted.
Yes.
So we're talking about societal expectations, and we're talking about them from the perspective of an African girl child.
Yeah.
So I want to get into, there's so many layers to this, and let's just see what we'll be able to get through today.
Yeah.
Kari, if I say societal expectations, what comes to mind? What's that one big thing that you remember being jarring in terms of someone or something expecting something that you weren't quite prepared for?
Yeah, I think it's the expectation of what an African girl should behave, how they should behave, what they should look like, what they should say. You must always be appropriate. I for one was raised to always be polite.
Yeah.
And appropriate, and you're representing a people.
Yeah.
So you're not on your own. So it's a community-based kind of approach to life, and and the self is kind of buried in there. And I think that's what we're struggling with now. How do I bring out the self without compromising the communal,
Absolutely.
African upbringing?
And Tuto, for you, was it particularly different where you grew up and, reflecting on it, what do you also think the burden of that can be?
Sure. What comes to mind is the isms of what one has always carried and continues to carry.
Yeah.
Whether it's classism,
Yeah.
whether it's sexism,
Yeah.
whether it's racism, as a black woman.
Ageism.
Ageism,
Yep.
of late. So it is all of the isms that one often, and you continue to carry them all the time, whether it's in corporate, whether it's in your own society, whether it's actually even socially at times. All of those isms, particularly as a black woman, I find that it is a constant burden that you are kind of always trying to sort of, unburden yourself of. And it's a real burden because you're working on it constantly.
And I think all of this has its premise in all of our childhood, right? Where we're reared, I'm no psychologist, but psychology says that your years 0 to 12 are your formative years. And that's kind of when this is beaten into you, kind of, making you form and fit. And I know I battled as a child, and because I speak loudly, I think a lot of people who knew me when I was a child probably didn't see that. But I battled because as an overthinker, I've got a lot of questions. So I question. In order to understand, I question everything. And I just remember my voice being shut down because my questioning was seen as arrogance or disobedience and I never knew where to take it. I'm like, but I want somebody to indulge me, to be able to understand. And I think where, kind of the mind flip has been, now you get to being an adult and you're in a corporate space and you're working and you're expected to question. So, okay, that thing that I shut down now, I must raise it up. And I mean, I want to know from your childhood, kind of what was that one thing that you thought in terms of expectations was what you struggled with the most?
Well, I mean, I was also a very inquisitive child, right? I was annoying.
Yeah.
You know, the why becomes the why of the why. Of the why. But also at some level you feel misunderstood. You know, because you're suppressing the self, but the self keeps popping out. You know, so I'm not going to be like other kids who I don't know, want to go play this. You know, you want to play something else. It's the, am I being seen as an individual or am I being clubbed? You know, especially when you're growing up with cousins. I mean, I was an only child of my parents, but I grew up with my cousins. So the expectation was you must all be the same. You know, I hated theme, guys. Theme was a staple in our home. The sour papo, I don't know how you know how others interpret it, but it was just not my favorite. But you gotta eat it because everyone else is eating it, you know. So you're not allowed to be intolerant of things. I don't know how gluten and lactose and all these intolerant kids survive, you know, in environments like that. You're not allowed to be different. You're not allowed to be extraordinary, you know. So it was tough when you're younger, but I just pushed through. I don't know what it was. I always call it chutzpah. You know? I insist that I'm just you know a terrible, well, difficult kid like that. But so at some point, parents tend to just like, you know, leave her to it. But it's through a struggle.
Very difficult.
And I don't know how many kids then give up and they just go with the flow. You know.
And I think, isn't it incredible that the difficult child, you know, often rises to the top, right? And how's that been for you, kind of coming into your own and reflecting on the little girl that you were, and what permissions are you giving yourself right now in how you show up to the world?
That's an interesting one. So growing up in Lesotho, I'll tell you, and I spoke about the isms. Colorism. Is one of them, right? You and I both.
And me.
So no, then even then the Basotho people even have a word for a dark child. Really? So I grew up as Setswana. Meaning the dark one, exactly. And on top of that, it became my name. Literally, when you go to, particularly the guys that know me at a very young age, that I would have grown up with, including my own niece, by the way, she'll keep on saying Mansu or Twani. And that's how people know me. And so it becomes part of you, and really it has some connotation of the dark ones are not necessarily really that pretty. You know, the dark ones are not necessarily to be seen. So I kind of maybe channeled that energy more to my brain. You know, okay, so I've got to be the one that is really, concentrate on brain, because all of this kind of, trying to be a pretty little girl. That's on your part, you know.
That's crazy.
And we talked about in another episode that you're not allowed to be both.
No, you're not allowed to be both. And I think when you're darker skinned or maybe highly light skinned in a community where it isn't, you kind of think, okay, well, you know, forget that. I mean, I think, and then you kind of, as you say, you resign yourself to, well, let me be brilliant elsewhere. And I mean, it's had its upside, right? The fact that we did focus on books, thank God for that. But it's left us with years of work and therapy that we've had to do. I think let's talk about these expectations. So we're always going to touch on home and family. And I'm going to dial it up a little bit and talk about the societal expectations for a perceived successful Black child. And let's not shy away from the fact that we have reached certain levels of success in our lives and careers. And I want to understand the expectations, the burdens, if any, that come with that. good, bad, or indifferent. You know, has anyone ever said to you, it's okay, Gary, we just want to see your face, or you know, here's something for you. Don't bring anything. Come as you are.
You know, I think the saying that we are our ancestors' dreams or wildest dreams is true, right? Because we are some second generation of achievement or of success, whatever success is, but we are living at a higher level than our backgrounds. So you are seen as the one who got away, the one who pulled through, so you gotta support the ones, you know, who are left behind. Never mind the fact that we all had the same opportunities, but you decided you're not gonna go to school, you're gonna focus on the streets, you know, because I think sometimes it's unfair that you are responsible for the outcome you didn't have a role in, you know. So a lot of us are expected to look after the ones back home who may not even be your parents. They were not your primary caregivers. There's no link to why that black tax burden should be on you, but there is that expectation that, you know, because you're doing better. And by the way, it's a perception that you're doing better. They don't live in the city.
No.
Right.
They don't pay rent in the village. They don't have to pay for the lives that we live in the
Rates
city.
and taxes.
Rates and taxes, right?
And SARS.
And SARS. Yeah, so it's, and I don't know whether it's a question of education to educate our people. I mean, we said in another episode that maybe sometimes we must be broke. We must also not have. Because that's another thing we do. We're never broke. When somebody asks for something, you feel the need to give. So is it their fault really to not think that you lack?
So true. I mean, we were talking about, you know, I know your mom, I knew your mom, Kari, and I know with my mom as well, she is extremely protective. You know, of me, and kind of wants no pressure on me. But how do you balance that? Especially when you go to family events, etc. Right now it's easier, you know, sometimes you can choose to pick a call or not pick a call. So maybe the distance allows you that separation. But when you show up and you can't be protected by Mam Tsiling, how do you you know, maneuver in those situations?
It's a tough one. I'll tell you, purely because I think we spoke about it in terms of balancing the cultural side versus also this world that we are exposed to, which is mostly the first world. So I've adopted all of, because of my adulthood, I've been in Model C schools, you know, universities that are great, then you get into corporate. So you end up adopting your first world type of, you know, cultures unconsciously. And then also then going to back to the village, it is extremely hard to relate, but not only to relate, you don't understand some of the nuances. Why should I then be conforming to A, B, and C? And the conformance that I speak about, you know, you talk about our mothers being our protectors. So for instance, you get into a village, you are expected to be part of the peanut community and the cooking community. And truth is, your life is really not too exposed to that type of thing, because every single day I wake up at 5 a.m. to, you know, report to a corporate office.
Absolutely.
And therefore my skills and the 10,000 hours in the cooking skills, trust me, they're very little there, but they're elsewhere. So it is really difficult, I can tell you, just kind of finding the two worlds, how they meet and collide.
But for me, I mean, my stance on that is clear, at funerals especially. Like we all come in with our best, right? Some of us are good with our hands, with cooking, with, you know.
Let's show up at our best.
Let's show up at our best, because somebody has to bring the groceries, somebody has to cook, someone has to dish, someone has to be the chief mourner. You know, who's crying when you are all, you know, do you know what I mean? Somebody has to go fetch the corpse from the mortuary. They're separate duties, so we don't have to show up everywhere.
Guys, when my dad passed, long after we'd put him to rest and we'd all gone back to our places of work, my mom found out that somebody she really holds dearly, who's a friend of hers, was going and talking about her, but talking about my dad's burial. And this person disapproved entirely, about how we conducted ourselves. And how dare we, having grown up in the community, went and got caterers. What are we trying to insinuate? That type of thing. Did we think they wanted to steal our groceries? And it really is, I think when my siblings and I sat down, it was, first of all, one of my sisters was living out of the country, right? So that traveling with her children to come and bury her dad. And I got called out of a strategy session at work when my dad passed. It's just like literally everybody's lives are happening. So we're like, how do we simplify this for everyone? But also, who's my community? It's you and you. You are not going to be peeling tomatoes, and I know you guys love
No,
me.
we have them pre-peeled.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's ridiculous. And we thought we were doing a great service to everyone. Like, you're gonna come pray with us, help us mourn. And to hear that people had a particular issue.
They do.
And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, they do. Because the normal expectation is that it's a community burial. So people are expected to come and peel. That's why we have societies, we have clubs within the community to help each other when moments like this come. So it's about the education that we're talking about. You have to show people that it's not because I'm not appreciative or that I'm trying to show that I'm better.
No. It's just, and I love what you said, like, this is where my 10,000 hours go. And I love people who cook, but that's not where my 10,000 hours. If anything, maybe I have 2 hours, so I'll make it 2 boiled eggs, but that's about it. And it's really just, kind of respecting where each of us are in life.
And I don't know about you guys. I mean, do you know how to cook in big pots outside?
Never done.
The 3-foot thing.
Yes, you said the 10,000 hours go elsewhere.
So we'll fail. You will not eat good food if you trust me.
Exactly.
To be out there.
It's insane. But I mean, and let's talk about, because I know I struggled a little bit earlier in my career, not now, in terms of bridging those societal expectations. You go to school, you're brilliant, you go to varsity, you get out, and then you're in corporate. And there's a different set of expectations. No one shows up for you. No one's coming to check if you're okay. If you don't speak, everybody assumes everything is 100%. If you don't put your hand up and speak for yourself, whether it's about the working conditions, the work that you do, the salary, no one's coming to save you. So just the kind of very different and almost like opposites. On the one hand, you've been this and you're like, okay, just when you kind of think you've got it mastered, you're now thrusted into an environment where actually your traditional societal expectations will probably drown you if you
because now you're on your own.
So how did you maneuver that? Let's start with you, T.
Great difficulty. I mean, first of all, when you grow up, as I said, growing up in a kind of small country, Lesotho, in a village, everybody is meh, and everybody is Ndate, who is older than you, know, and maybe a couple of years older than you. They also have like a title before, Abuti, that type of thing. So now you get into corporate. And there is a partner at work. Well, I'm a chartered accountant and therefore being trained, within audit firms. There's a partner at work, and this guy is probably as old as my grandfather. I must say just John. Hi, John. And really be quite casual about it, And it kind of then starts there. It's a little bit tricky. Then you can see yourself. You want to be extremely respectful. You can't look them in the eye, And that then gets mistaken for timidity. It gets mistaken for lack of confidence. But all along, as I'm saying, where I grew up, and when I go back to my people, that
You
is
must still
how
revert.
I must still revert, and those are the default
And you dare
settings.
Miss Untate Mama.
Oh no!
Hey, Tiberi.
I mean, how's that gonna work for me? Like,
Yeah.
people will never forget that incident.
Yeah.
So the struggles of always just trying to balance, first of all, to get out of your normal default settings to, I now need to appear. And it's not, I'm not assertive.
Yeah.
I am, I know my technical ability, I know what I've got to do and deliver. But then my demeanor and socialization is a little bit different. And you had to teach yourself, and nobody comes for you, hey? To teach you to say, hey, at least in my time, let me just say, when, you know, we were still making our way in, there weren't much of these networking circles of women. There weren't many of these maybe I'll say organizations that we're seeing that are doing fabulous work at the moment, you know? So no one really tells you to say, okay, this is how you're gonna conduct yourself, this is how these things work around here. So you observe, you quickly observe, you then watch and you say, oh, this is how then people address each other, this is how people, and you just have to go along. But at that time, you've already lost something. Like the issue of sponsorship, I didn't know. So I'm not gonna go hang around with John because it's uncomfortable. This is an elder. But my counterpart, who was growing up in a different environment, likely to be white, knows that Uncle John, actually, I need to have a drink with him.
Stairway to the top.
Exactly, to understand some of the issues that I'm facing and to mentor me and to actually then say, yeah, when you finish your articles, you know what, maybe corporate finance.
These are the options.
These are the options. You kind of like sit there and you're mentoring each other's buddies and then you observe.
And you check in the pay, right?
Why?
You're driven by that.
Why is Peter getting more than me?
Not that it's a good environment, Emmy, but what does it pay?
And then, Gary, there's also the, you know, in relationships, and I'm talking about romantic relationships, those societal expectations. I think that's where I have the biggest issue, that, you know, there's this comparison that kind of makes women look like they're homogenous, right? You both are CAs, chartered accountants, winning in life, doing great, amazing things, and yet when you enter into romantic relationships, there are sectors of society who just kind of want you to go into default and, you know, make 7 colors on a Sunday and put Tisa and be by the pots outside. That leads me to a conversation I know T and I have all the time, and that's this one pains me to no end. And I know, you know, I know Chimamanda speaks about it quite furiously, and that's for the Black female child who is unmarried with no children. And I mean, I honestly think they are, you know, they say Black women are kind of at the bottom of society, and Black women unmarried with no children are even beneath that. So you are literally in the mind digging, right? Where again, it's the kind of that pull and push of when needed, show up, diligently ask no questions, you know, kind of click your heels twice, do what you need
besides
to do.
you've got all the money because you don't have children.
And then when we don't need you, go into the cupboard and stay still, because what do you know? You don't have a husband, you don't have and nobody ever stops to audit what you're doing, you know, kind of who you're taking care of.
But also, is that the ultimate? You know, you have a husband who, but you're not happy. What counts? Being a husband, having a husband, or being happy? You know, you have children you cannot take care of. You know, in most cases we have to still come in and help. So, you know, what is it?
And I mean, that conversation isn't had, right?
Yes.
Because society has decided to assign a certain glory to the institution of marriage, and I think it's a beautiful institution. My parents were married, and I loved that. But I am successful, and it shouldn't take away from my success the fact that I don't have a husband and children.
Or maybe it's not your priority also.
And I mean, also, but also, don't you think, and I think often, isn't that why people run into kind of whatever is available?
Oh yeah.
Because you achieve everything and you still.
No, but that's the measure of ultimate success, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, T can have the views on it.
The burden of, I guess, being a woman being black coming from our own cultures. It's exactly that, They're just certain expectations.
Yeah.
And expectations that I sometimes find a little bit unfounded in terms of evolution.
Yeah.
Times evolve.
Absolutely.
All of the time.
Absolutely.
So culture at times, and I'm not saying all of the time, at times stays static and not necessarily moving
And
to,
adapts.
Yeah, exactly, and adapt. And there's just so many things. Well, maybe personally, I've been slightly fortunate in that, I've been brought up by women that really did find their voices somehow in society. I mean, I'm told that my grandmother at some point owned a mine guide, artisan mining.
Yeah.
So this was a girl.
Wow.
You're made of great, great ilk.
This was a girl who was going to make do to protect her family. She was a farmer. She was a homemaker. Even when I visited my grandmother, you'll always find preservatives, like whether in a form of peaches, meat, biltong, whatever. So she was very, very much someone who just always found a way to do for her family, and her family did stand out in the village without a doubt. And that is how she brought up her kids, which were predominantly women. 3 of them were women and 1 younger boy. And then comes my mother, who then, also coming out of a village, becomes a nurse. And in becoming a nurse, gets fortunate to get a scholarship to go to Kenya through a WHO scholarship. Coming back, it was not enough, even that. So the self-drive, I'm just saying, it's inherently a little bit there, and I've seen it with them. Then, proceeds to go to Stellenbosch. I mean, she can't even speak a word of Afrikaans. She
At the
graduated.
time, Stellenbosch was Afrikaans.
Dude, in 1999. So all I'm just saying, it's so difficult, one, fitting within the cultural norms. And it did also make me cringe in various times, because these are conforming people like you, Kari, and you kind of question, you're like, guys, just get in line sometimes. You don't always have
peace
to.
sake,
For peace sake.
Don't always be leading the charge.
But I'm also grateful for what they have always instilled in me. It's okay to just be you. It's okay to really not fit in within certain norms. But I can guarantee you that I'm always reminded. It doesn't matter whether it's in a corporate setting, whether I go back to my cousins, I go back. There's always some level of, that reminder of, the bit of what you don't have and the bit that that is lacking. Corporate culture, strong black woman. Or you're the militant because, you're not married, so therefore you don't have somebody who can rein you in.
Wow.
Hey!
We are the wild ones. Wild horses. Yeah.
So it's very interesting.
It's extremely interesting. And I thank God for the father I had, guys, because he literally encouraged the wildness. I think he married a wild one in my mother, who was raised by a wild one in my grandmother, and raised wild ones in us. But you go out into society, and even today, I still cringe when you hear the comments or when you hear the comparisons about women, the color inside the lines, and us, who kind of make people kind of uncomfortable and
It's
cringe.
crazy. I mean, I'll tell you an example. I've always been clear that, I'm bringing a service into the workplace. I know my worth. Gotta pay me. Pay your girl. Pay your girl, because she's doing her bit, right? So I had the conversation with my boss around the increase in pay. And he says, how much do you want? And I told him. He says, whoa, who's gonna marry you with that number? You're taking yourself out of the market. We're like, well, you know, the one who's gonna take me to the moon. You know, is the one who's gonna
Leave me with that problem.
I'll deal with it. Don't worry.
Don't
worry about it.
Don't worry.
Isn't it crazy you say
crazy.
that? Because then we talk about the pay parity,
Yes.
particularly for women,
Yes.
Yeah.
black women being
Yes.
much lower.
Yeah.
So it's almost, as you say,
Absolutely.
even then your bosses who may be black men
Yes.
are trying to protect you.
Yeah, he really was. He came from a pure place. Like,
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to get you out of the market, but
You know, I was listening, it's actually this week, I was listening to a clip by Oprah. And she was saying in the 80s when she was on a network channel, and a colleague of hers, she happened to find out that this guy was earning double what she was.
Yeah.
And her being the wild militant woman who knows what she deserves, also matched up to her boss's office on some, but how does this happen?
Yes.
And the answer was, but what do you need that money for?
yes.
Yeah.
Basically, you're a black girl. What do you need?
Yeah.
What are you
Fiddle.
gonna do with it? Do you have? And she says, in that moment, you know, when you go stupid for 2 minutes, where you actually, the response is so wild that you haven't prepared how you're gonna answer that. She said, the boss said, "Are you married?" And she said, "No." "Do you have children?" "No." So he's married. He's got children.
Yeah, he needs money.
And that was the end of that.
Yeah.
And it's insane. She says, but the upside is it pushed her to create her own. And
thing,
thank God for
yes,
that.
yes.
And I think it's that. It is, you know, in the moments where we're seen to be crazy, you then kind of create a path for yourself. And we celebrate that. So, ladies, thank you for an absolutely incredible conversation. There's so many layers to this and so much more that we can talk about. And Tuto, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We are absolutely honored. We will invite you back again because we continue to have these conversations. And the more we talk about these things, we hope that the walls will become lower and lower.
Yeah, and the continent becomes closer and closer.
Absolutely.
Right? Because our struggles are the same in most cases.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching. Please follow us on KLINK Africa on all platforms, and please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, ladies, KLINK.
Clink.